Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Intro to Coding with the Griffin Initiative. Now, today we're going over C Sharp primarily. We'll get into C++ tomorrow. This is pretty much all the same day. You can see the date and time. Now, static void main. Static void means just like it's going to be this way in every single class for program, right? I think they're doing that just to protect themselves. It used to be that you can write void. Let's see, void. Oh no, you can do it. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Okay. I don't know if it was just the computers at school or what. Anyways, you guys are probably wondering, like, what am I looking at? Why do I care? Why should I care? Well, number one, today we're going to go over how does coding work and what should you know right off the bat. Well, number one, there are things called variables, kind of like how the essentially it's just like algebra if you think about it. Variables in algebra, x, y, and z, right? Those are all variables in an equation. Well, programming is very similar to that. Instead of finding a variable, we have to assign a variable. So you have, I would say personally, like the three main data types that you'll constantly be using is int for integer, and we'll say num. We will say bool. We'll say condition, and then we say so int, bool, and then string. Words. Word. All right. So what are all these things? So integer is, well, it's exactly that. It's an integer. Now, when it says a 32-bit signed integer, we don't really need to worry about that at the moment because it's C#. It takes care of all your memory problems. Don't worry about that. We'll get into that when you look at the C++. Now, a Boolean is a true or false value. It says it right here. If you just hover your mouse over any of these data types, it explains what these are. So this is called Intellisense. This is super useful when you're writing code, you're writing different programs, and you're just like, I need to know what this is. Like a string, it represents a UTF-16 code integer and units. What that means is that essentially it's a string of characters. It's essentially saying like you can store words, sentences, paragraphs, you name it. It's like using the paragraph it's like using the P symbol in HTML. If you don't know what that is, you'll see in a few minutes when we start writing our first program. So your very first program is going to be called Hello World. So we'll say, we'll enter a few more times because coding practice. One thing that I'm going to beat into your heads is that coding practice, best practices. Number one, put all of your variables at the top if you don't need them somewhere else. So for example, integer, bool, and string, whenever I am declaring something, like if I need a number somewhere, and I know that I can just declare this right off the bat, I'll put it right up here. Declaring is essentially just saying integer num and bool condition and things like that. It's just saying like, hey, there's a variable called condition. We haven't set it to anything. The reason why there's this green line is because it says it's a null value, which means there's nothing there and it's never being used. So that's a really easy way to see if you have something that's just not useful. So I can have number equal to 0. I can have this equal to true. And then I can have words equal to, this is the symbol for string. I can have words equal to, this is a sentence. There, I don't know how to spell. So there you go. Now, I'm going to teach you how to write out to the console. Now, writing out to the console is as easy as 1, 2, 3. So it's going to look like this. Console dot write line. And I'm going to say hello world. Now, essentially what you're seeing right now is console.writeLine takes a argument. It could be a string, it could be an integer, it could be a Boolean, it could be anything really, as long as it has a way to essentially transform whatever data you're throwing into it into a way that it can print. So now I'm going to hit Control and F5 to run the program without it exiting automatically. And as you can see, it says hello world right at the top. Now console.writeLine writes one line, and it writes whatever it's given. So for example, if I were to say console.writeLine and then say CW, CW, and then I hit tab, right? You can do that pretty quickly, especially if you're writing a really big program and you have console.writeLine and you're writing that 100 times, it gets tiring. So if you write CW and then tab, it's great. So now we can say, okay, string. All right, we'll put words in here. So we can call a variable and put a reference to it. This is called a reference. When you are referencing a variable, like when you say in an equation and you have x 4 places in that equation, well, you're not re-saying like x equals something every single time you're putting that down. You're saying, okay, x equals, let's say 5, and then I have to say x plus 1 would be 11, right? Because 5 plus 5 plus 1 is 11. So it's the same idea here. If you're putting words into WriteLine, well, let's see what we get out. We get hello world, and this is a sentence. Pretty simple, right? So this is going to be your very first program. I'm not going to give you guys a whole hell of a lot. I don't want to make you guys bite off a huge chunk on your first few days of writing code. Next one we will do is we'll cover condition statements, and yeah, we'll just go from there.